For the last 66 years, one bass has been the most iconic, the most recognizable, and for many players, the most coveted. Synonymous with the most famous musician in the world, the Hofner 501 is often referred to simply as the Beatles Bass. This narrow-necked, hollow-body four-string was the instrument that played the bass lines that changed popular music forever and was the beginning of a brand new sound that players for decades would emulate. And here is my own personal version of it. I got one. I got a Hofner 501. This is a Chinese one that I bought used from the Guitar Center website. I love it, you guys. I absolutely love it. It's a great bass for the pick. I am using a pick. You don't have to use a pick, I will say. But yeah, you guys, let's talk about like what it's like living with this. So like many of you, I am a massive Beatles fan. I'm a huge Paul McCartney fan. I buy every single Paul McCartney album that comes out as soon as it comes out. And if you don't do that as a Beatles fan, I don't understand people who are huge Beatles fans and then don't buy Paul McCartney albums as soon as they come out, because newsflash, one of the songwriters from the Beatles is still alive and making music, so buy that stuff. Anyway, so this is the bass, right? It's used, it has some bruises and some scratches, which I actually kind of like because it looks a little more vintage. I did not do this to it. I do think, though, that this is one of the limited edition ones that they made, I think like 100 of each color. So this one is a little bit more of a tobacco-y burst than the big cherry sunburst. I don't really like the cherry burst one personally because they're not as close to the color that Paul McCartney uses on his bass, but this is closer. It's not exactly right, obviously. It's a little too black in here, but otherwise I like it. It's a little more brown than red, and that's awesome. But every single time I walk into my studio and I see this thing hanging up on the wall over there, it's like walking in and seeing a celebrity in my room every single time. And I don't want to, like, I'm not kidding. It really, really, like, I see it and I'm like, oh, there it is. There it is. It's finally here. It's finally on my wall. And it is so much fun to own. It's so much fun to play. I have done a little bit of work to this, and I will talk about that. So one of the big modifications that you can do to this, one of the most popular ones you can do to the Chinese copies, is get the original tone controls and all of the electronics from Hofner from Germany. They cost around $200, which I think is a fair price considering how much better the bass sounds when you put this control panel on there. Lots of other people online have done this and talk about how great it sounds. I was a little skeptical, like, how big of a difference can it make? It makes a huge difference, you guys. I wish I'd had a recording of it before I did the work, but I don't. It really, really is a night and day difference. You get so much more low end out of it. It's pretty ridiculous that they even put those cheap Chinese ones in there, considering how much better this one is. So really quick, easy, inexpensive upgrade to your Chinese Hofner if you ever want to do that. I will say, if you do it, be forewarned that what happened to me was that I bought this thing, started taking out the old one, started disconnecting wires, and did all this preliminary work. And then I realized that the new plate, the German controls, were actually a little bit narrower than the hole in the top of the bass. So in the intro, you might have noticed that there's like a slightly more white plate running under the yellowy plate. So the German one is a little more vintage colored. That is because what I ended up having to do is taking that plastic plate off of my original one, cutting a hole in the middle of it just to make a frame to fill that space. Plus, I mean, there was nowhere for this thing to even screw in because the hole was so much bigger. So yeah, I drilled a couple of holes in it, and now this control plate is actually screwed into the old plastic. But that's, just so you know, if you ever get one of these, you might have to do that. It's a simple thing to do with a Dremel. Took me like maybe 5 minutes and super easy. The other thing that I did to make this a little bit more accurate to the Beatle bass is I got the strings from Labella Strings. They make a set that is specifically the Paul McCartney Beatle bass strings. They're stainless steel. I don't know the gauge off the top of my head, but you can look them up. But maybe I'll drop a link in the more info area. This is an unsponsored video. I paid for everything myself with patron money. Thank you to my Patreons. Thank you to my Patreons. Yes, that's the word. Patrons. Anyway, this thing, you guys, it's so much more fun than I thought it was going to be. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting, the very first time I ever picked one of these up, was how narrow the neck is from the nut all the way up to the body here. So if you don't know, something like a Stratocaster or a P-Bass or, more normal instruments, they widen as they get up here, almost by like a full inch, if not a little more, depending on the instrument. This guy only widens about a little bit more, just a little bit more than a half an inch. So what that means basically is as you're coming up the neck, this spacing doesn't get super wide. The string spacing doesn't get really wide, which for a guitar player is awesome if you like to play like, little licks in your bass lines and stuff. It also explains a lot about how Paul wrote some of these things and why they sound the way they do, but yeah, it's a fast neck, I will say, because of that string spacing up here. So if you're a guitar player looking for a bass, like I was really surprised at how narrow it was and how comfortable and easy it is to play. So yeah, guitar players out there looking for basses, put this on your list. It might not be. You might think of this more as like a novelty item, which is, kind of how I thought about it. But now that I have one, I've done the work to it that I love and that I like really wanted to do. It's exactly what I want it to be. And I didn't even know I wanted it to be that. It's not a novelty item. It's a really, really awesome sounding bass that plays great. Needed a little bit of setup work. This was used. I will mention to you guys out there, if you're looking for these used on the Guitar Center website, my advice is to buy one when you see it. If you wait 24 hours, it's gonna go and you will lose it. It happened to me 2 times with 2 other basses, although I'm actually really happy that I got this one because it's gorgeous, it's the color I want, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I saw it and I pulled the trigger and I was like, I'm buying it. I'm not losing another used one because they don't come up all that often, maybe a couple months every now, and then you'll find one, buy it if you see it, if you want it. Get rid of the pick. Oh, you guys, that thumb sound, right? That thumb sound. Whew. It's a great bass. I love it. This isn't a review. I don't know what this is. It's kind of a show and tell video, but I know Beatles fans out there will love this thing. And if you are looking for one of these basses, yeah, just go get a used one or a new one if you got the money to plunk down. There are used like ones from the 60s, and I would absolutely love to have one of those, but they go for, let's say like in the neighborhood of $2,000 and up for anything close to the Paul McCartney year, which is 63. But even like a 64, they're like $2,500, $2,000. It's a little much, especially considering you can do this to it and get something that is like 98% the same as far as sound quality goes. Like I I can't imagine anybody would be like, that's a Chinese one versus, oh, that's the German one. Yeah, good luck. I don't think you could if I hadn't told you, if you'd only been listening. So a little bit of history, I'll just give you, it was actually originally designed in 1955, and it was designed for people who played upright basses in orchestras, and Hofner was trying to give them an option for something smaller, more portable, easier to use as electronics were getting, more popular in the music industry. So that's why it's shaped like a violin. That's why it's a hollow bass. From what I've read, it wasn't all that popular when they first built them. People were buying them and it wasn't, a total loss for them. But it wasn't like a huge seller because nobody had really been doing it. Then Paul McCartney picked one up, and I've heard two rumors, I've heard two stories, which was it was custom built as a left-handed instrument for him. And he needed a left-handed bass. And so he contacted Hofner and said, hey, can you build a left-handed one for me? And they said yes. I have also heard that the reason he ended up with his Hofner was because it was the only left-handed bass in history that he could find at the time. So maybe if you guys know the truth, leave it in the comments. Maybe you know the real story. Is this story true or not? Did he have it custom built? Or did he just see it on the wall somewhere and was like, hey, left-handed bass, finally, left-handed bass, I'm going to buy that. So I don't know what the true story is, but maybe someone asks Paul for me. In the recording studio, this thing is freaking great. It is, especially if you're doing, of course, any sort of Beatle-esque style songs, which I tend to do quite a bit of. It's really, really nice to have the real bass. I will say that Waves makes a couple of plugins, like the old EMI mixers, the TG 12345 mixer is a thing you can buy. It's a plugin you can buy from Waves. It makes a big difference if you're trying to get that authentic Paul McCartney tone. Definitely get that plugin. It's really good. And I also added the J37. It's actually a tape delay, but you can run it just to add a little bit of just to add a little bit of analog warmth and a little bit of tape saturation to it. And that's actually what you're listening to now. Yeah, this is more of just me showing off. I know. I'm so happy to have this bass, and like I said before, it's like having a celebrity in my house. Every time I see it, my heart goes all aflutter. It is so much fun to own. When my friends see it, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you got one of those? Oh my gosh, you got one of those!" And everybody wants to play it. It's super fun. It has stainless steel strings on it, so that's not a big deal. They're easy to wipe down, and my friends' grimy fingers don't mess it up too much. So that's pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little, showing off, show and tell of my new Hofner 501, my used Hofner 501. At the end here, I'm going to give you a little sample of a recording I did, really basic little thing I just played and recorded with that preset, with the Waves plugins, just so you hear it. And I just wanted you to hear, just like a clean, well-recorded tone, not just me sitting here noodly on the bass. But you guys, besides that, I hope you're having an awesome day. Please hit that subscribe button. I'm getting so close to 100,000 subscribers, and I would really, really appreciate it if you were one of them. And that's pretty much it. So you guys, check out your Hofner 501. If you want one, check it out. They are sweet. And hope you have a great day. I appreciate you watching and hitting that subscribe button and all that stuff, leaving comments, blah, blah, blah. Have an awesome day. Peace and love.